the US unemployment rate versus the labor force participation rate. And now I can, now it's legit. So here is the unemployment rate, and there is the labor force participation rate. On the other hand, there's the same chart, and now we've got added the labor force participation chart. So you can see here is at the end of the road, 63.8% participation of the people who are of age, work eligible age. And you've got, right on across, you've got 8-point-something% unemployment. The two numbers don't exactly jive, and why is that? Why don't the numbers jive?
Well, you have more participation when the unemployment's lower, right? Isn't that what
Well,
it should be?
these charts, of course, are reversed, so we do it the other way, which makes it a lot easier to read. There it is, reversing it and making the percentages come down. And so then when I add the labor force participation rate, you see it makes more sense. It took some time to flip that thing around, but that white one was the one I got off the internet. I thought, this is hard to follow. But if I turn it around, see how much easier it is to follow? And so there's the unemployment rate, and then you say, but here's the people who are of work age, and what percentage of the people who are of age that from 16 to 65. Go ahead.
I just have a question. I want to have a little precision on the concept that you are using. What's the definition of labor participation?
Glad you asked. Thought you would never ask. Those that are above 16 years old.
Okay.
So all the people who might be looking for work.
Okay.
And I have no idea exactly. Go
Does it
ahead.
include people not looking for work?
Pardon me?
Does it include people not looking for work?
It does. It includes people who are
Everybody
everybody over
65.
16 years old.
But now they don't count you if you've been out of work after.
Only,
your
that's
unemployment.
exactly what I was trying to get you to say, because that's the red line. The red line is, and you see how it delays the blue line, because people who give up looking for work, they're not unemployed. Oh, you're not looking for work, you're not unemployed. And they keep dropping out. So it's pretty, there's a great disparity. And what I think is interesting, the labor force keeps,
Declining.
it's declining. See that? Here another word, the people who are employed, out of all the people who are of employment age, these are this is the percentage of the people who are employed. Like in 2000, you had 67% of the people who were of the age of employment working. But now,
Lowest unemployment.
now in 2012, now or a year or 2 years ago, you only had 64% working. And yet, when you look at the unemployment figures, just like Scott says, wait a minute, unemployment is going down. How can that be? But the number of people who are working is going down. They're arguing against each other.
Yeah.
And last time I taught the class, I said, for years I've been saying, well, you know, all these unemployment, how they count it, and they got a vested interest in making it look good, that there's the numbers are. I kept saying, well, we need to find how many people are working, not how many people are not working, and see if the number's going up and down. So I found this chart, Bureau of Labor Statistics, and when the recession was at its worst in 2010, you look at that chart, and you say, oh my God, I forget what the percentage of people working was. And now the recession's been over for 3 years, everybody's hallelujah, unemployment's down to 5-point-something%. and only 0.3% more of the American people are working than were working at the worst moment of the recession.
Because they dropped out.
I heard a guy in the news the other day, he says, well, the numbers show that the recession is over, but the American people don't believe it. We have to convince them because we have the facts. And well, you might have your own set of facts, but
They don't feel it.
they aren't reality. The reality is the blue line. Now, I'm sure there are some people who, stay-at-home moms who can afford not to work, who don't want a job and wouldn't take one if you offered to them, but that must be a small percentage of people.
Also, the underemployed that are not working in as quality, good jobs as they
They're
say.
not fully employed, shall we say.
Also, it doesn't include people in jail.
And-
Well, that's
That's
gonna.
about 3 million people.
Yeah, that's right.
2 million are in jail, and this number does not count all the people in the military, which is well over a million
That
people.
percentage of people doesn't.
So, there's a lot of people who are on, but you can see how
For
these
this number.
things contradict
Because
each
the way
other.
they
And,
define the
and one of
statistics,
the things that
if you give up
was
working
interesting
for
to me,
a certain
when I was looking
give
at
up
those
working,
charts,
you don't count.
is that, like I say, 0.3% more people, higher percentage of the population working than there was in 2010. But the population increased by 10 million people during that time. Oh, where did that happen? But our birth rate is, well, right, it's level, isn't it? So where did the people come from?
Immigration.
Immigration?
Yeah, and we're not talking illegal immigration, we're talking legal immigration. People come on N1 visas. Why do we hire foreigners? They work cheap, relatively speaking, right? And they are very efficient. That's why I'm getting off my subject, but I don't think that we're ever going to have an immigration bill. The people who claim they're against it are the people who represent the people who gain the most from it, from illegal immigration. Am I right?
It's like,
But they employ the.
But they can get votes by saying they're against it.
I have two parts question.
Yes.
Okay, the first one is, I need your help if you can, I don't know if you have it in the screen or the definition of economics, science, as we as Georgians understand it.
The
I need-
science that
I would
treats
like
of
to
the
hear-
nature of wealth and the natural laws that govern its production and distribution.
Okay, that's what I learned and thank you. Now, if you go back to my second point is, if you go back to the graph,
Which draft? This
the,
one?
the,
This one? Oh, yeah.
the
The one right
labor
here.
force and
This one.
all the other
The blue
ones, yeah.
Yeah.
So, according with our science that we study and practice, it looks like we don't, this is my question, do we care about the 60% of the population who is dropping out of the labor force,
Or the, whatever the. flip
or we
side
just
is.
care for the,
38% or something.
36%.
or we just care for the,
36%.
yeah, we just care for the people who is actively working and producing, and so our science looks like is not taking into consideration the rest of the people, or
I
it
think
is.
that's a really good question, and I don't know the answer. But I suppose the reason this number seems to me to be the thing to focus on is because we can see if more jobs relative to the population are being created or being lost. But we can't do it over a long period of time, and clearly there are going to be a certain percentage of the population who don't need to work and don't choose to work, especially people who are 65 and so on, and people who have the means to stay home and raise their kids and so on. But if you look at one of these charts that goes back far enough, you'll see that there was a much smaller, like in 1960 and 50, there was a much smaller percentage of the population employed than even at the worst part of the recession. And the reason was,
That's women.
They made more
That's
weight.
women were working.
less women were working, and why was that?
They made more
Because the
money
men made more money.
And why was that?
because the pay was good. Wages were high.
Well, Henry George explains it all, remember, in Progress and Poverty, because in those days you had to iron your clothes, you had to cook your dinner, you had to clean your, there were no
No labor
fancy
savings.
vacuum cleaners and water
No
machine and all that
automation.
stuff, and so it required a lot more labor in the home. And so, but as soon as, and he said it, you know, he
I'm sure
said,
that's a total waste.
look at these occupations in which the whole family participates. The combined income of the wife and kids as well as the husband usually equals about what one man is getting in other occupations where he's the sole breadwinner.
But it's, I'm not sure that's a total explanation, because now it's almost expected that the woman is gonna work as well.
Because she doesn't need to be home anymore.
Yeah, so now that's baked in, so now she competes with the man, whereas before, you know, she used to stay home. So now we've got,
She cooperates with the man, they share in the,
well, I don't mean in
right?
the same family, but I mean in general in the entire economy.
Sure.
So basically the employer has a choice, he can pay the man or he can pay a woman to do the same job, so now there's a competition and therefore the wages go down. Supply went up, so the wages go down.
Well, I mean, you could say it that way, but the way Henry George says it is because you have no alternative way to employ yourself, wages tend to a bare minimum. And of course, if two people in one family are working, now you don't need, each of them can contribute half, and you don't need as much total to make that minimum.
Yeah.
So I like it. I mean, every equation of supply and demand explains an economic phenomenon, fair enough? But it's always better if you can go one step beyond supply and demand and say, why is it you have no alternative? Because you have no way to employ yourself.
Yeah.
And we know that everywhere you turn, labor is becoming more and more efficient.
Right.
Yet wages are not in any way benefiting from the increase in productive power.
Right.
And of course, even Henry George was quoting somebody else when he pointed that out. Was it Carlyle or somebody that he quotes in the book? Carlyle?
Yeah, but now
It is
many.
doubtful if any invention yet introduced into the world has lessened the toil of labor, something like that.